20 years. That's how long it had been since I last saw my daughter's face. 20 years of silence. 20 years of wondering. 20 years of carrying a weight in my chest that never quite went away. And then on a cold Tuesday afternoon in November, she knocked on my door. I heard the sound and my heart stopped. 3 soft knocks. Patient. Uncertain. Like whoever was on the other side wasn't sure they should be there at all. I wasn't expecting anyone. The mailman had already come. My neighbor usually called before stopping by. I put down the book I'd been pretending to read and walked to the door. My hands were shaking, though I didn't know why yet. Some part of me, some deep buried part, already knew, already sensed what was coming. I opened the door, and there she was. Sarah, my daughter, standing on my porch after 2 decades of nothing, of emptiness, of a silence so loud it had filled every room of my life. She looked different. Older, of course. She was 42 now. The last time I'd seen her, she'd been 22. A young woman with fire in her eyes and anger in her voice. Now she stood before me with gray streaks in her dark hair, lines around her eyes, a softness in her expression that hadn't been there before. She wore a simple coat. Her hands were folded in front of her. And her eyes, those eyes I'd memorized, that I'd seen in my dreams for 20 years, were filled with something I couldn't quite name. Fear maybe. Hope. Regret. We stood there for what felt like an eternity but was probably only seconds. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us moved. The November wind blew cold between us, carrying dried leaves across the porch. I could hear a dog barking somewhere down the street. A car passing. Normal sounds from a normal day. But nothing about this moment was normal. This was the moment I'd imagined 1,000 times. The moment I'd hoped for. The moment I'd also feared. Because hope, when it's been disappointed so many times, becomes a dangerous thing. Finally Sarah spoke. Her voice was quiet, trembling slightly. "Mom," she said. Just that one word. Mom. And it broke something inside me that had been carefully held together for 20 years. I felt tears burning behind my eyes. My throat tightened. But I didn't speak. I couldn't. Because I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I should invite her in or ask her why she'd come. I didn't know if I should hug her or step back. 20 years of silence doesn't prepare you for reunion. It doesn't give you a script. This is the story of how I lost my daughter. And how, after 20 years, she came back. It's a story about words that can't be taken back. About pride that destroys what it's supposed to protect. About forgiveness that takes decades to find. And about love that survives even when everything else falls apart. My name is Margaret. I'm 67 years old. I live alone in a small house on Maple Street, in a town that hasn't changed much over the years. The same families, the same routines, the same quiet rhythms of life. I've lived in this house for 40 years, raised my daughter here, buried my husband here. And for the past 20 years I've lived here alone, with only memories and regrets for company. Sarah was my only child. My miracle baby, I used to call her. I'd had 3 miscarriages before her. 3 losses that left me hollow and afraid. And then Sarah came. Healthy. Perfect. With dark eyes and a strong cry that filled the hospital room. My husband, Michael, held her and cried. We both did. Because she was everything we'd hoped for. Everything we'd prayed for. Our little miracle. We raised her with love. Maybe too much love. Maybe we held on too tight. Maybe we tried too hard to keep her safe, to protect her from the world's sharp edges. Michael was strict. He had rules, curfews, expectations. He wanted Sarah to be responsible, to make good choices, to have a better life than we'd had. And I just wanted her to be happy, to know she was loved, to feel safe in our home. Sarah was a good kid. Smart, curious, a little headstrong, but in a way that made us proud. She asked questions. She challenged things. She had her own mind. As she grew older, she became more independent, more confident. And we were proud of that too. Until the day she brought home a boy named Marcus. Sarah was 21. She'd finished community college. She was working at a bookstore downtown. And she was in love. She told us over dinner one evening. Her eyes were bright. Her smile was wide. "I want you to meet someone," she said. "His name is Marcus. And he's important to me." Michael and I exchanged a glance. We said of course. We'd love to meet him. We meant it. Least I did. Marcus came to dinner the following Sunday. He was 23. Tall. Polite. He shook Michael's hand firmly. He complimented my cooking. He asked thoughtful questions. But there was something Michael didn't like. I could see it in his face. In the way his jaw tightened. In the way he watched Marcus throughout the meal. After Marcus left, after Sarah walked him to his car and came back inside glowing, Michael spoke. "I don't trust him," he said. We were in the kitchen. I was washing dishes. Sarah had gone upstairs. "Why not?" I asked. Michael shrugged. "Just a feeling. Something about him. The way he talks. Like he's saying what we want to hear. Not what he actually thinks." I told Michael he was being paranoid. That Marcus seemed nice. That Sarah was happy. Michael shook his head. "Mark my words, Margaret. That boy is going to hurt her." I didn't believe him. I thought he was being overprotective. Being the strict father who couldn't accept that his daughter was growing up. I defended Marcus. I told Sarah that we liked him, even though Michael's reservations lingered like a shadow over our home. And Sarah and Marcus grew closer. They spent more time together. She talked about him constantly. About his dreams, his plans, his ideas. She was falling deeper in love. And I was happy for her. I truly was. Then 6 months later, Sarah came to us with news. She and Marcus wanted to get married. She was glowing when she told us. Sitting at the kitchen table, her hands folded. Her voice excited but nervous. "We've been talking about our future," she said. "And we want to build it together. I know we're young, but we love each other. And we want your blessing." I wanted to say yes. I wanted to hug her and cry happy tears and start planning a wedding. But Michael's face went dark. He stood up from the table. "No," he said simply. Sarah's smile faded. "What?" I said no. "You're not marrying him. You barely know him. You're too young. And I don't trust him." Sarah's face flushed. "Dad, I'm 21. I'm not asking for permission. I'm asking for your blessing." Michael's voice was firm. "And I'm not giving it. You're making a mistake, Sarah. And I won't stand by and watch you ruin your life." The argument that followed was terrible. Voices raised. Tears shed. Sarah pleaded. Michael refused. I sat there frozen, caught between my husband and my daughter. I wanted to speak, to mediate, to find common ground. But I didn't know how. And in my silence I chose a side. Michael's side. Not because I agreed with him completely, but because he was my husband. Because I'd spent 25 years deferring to him on big decisions. Because I didn't know how to stand up to him, even when I thought he might be wrong. Sarah looked at me that night. Her eyes red from crying. "Mom," she said. It was a question. A plea. "Say something. Defend me. Tell him he's wrong." But I didn't. I looked down at my hands. And I said nothing. That silence was the beginning of the end. Sarah stood up. She wiped her eyes. And she said words I'll never forget. "Fine. If you can't support me, then I don't need you. Either of you." And she left. She packed a bag that night and moved in with Marcus. And for the first few weeks I told myself she'd come back. That she just needed time to cool off. That we'd talk and fix this. But we didn't. The weeks turned into months. Sarah called once. I answered. She asked if we'd changed our minds. If we'd come to the wedding. I hesitated. I wanted to say yes. But Michael was standing there shaking his head. And so I said, "Sarah, your father and I just want what's best for you." She laughed. A bitter broken sound. "What's best for me? Or what's best for his pride?" And she hung up. Sarah got married without us. I found out later from a mutual friend. A small ceremony. Just Marcus's family and a few friends. No white dress. No father to walk her down the aisle. No mother in the front row crying happy tears. Michael refused to talk about it. She made her choice, he said. And in his mind that was the end of it. But in my heart, it was the beginning of a grief that would last 20 years. The first year after Sarah left was the hardest. I walked past her bedroom every day. The door was closed. I couldn't bring myself to open it. Inside were all her things. Her books. Her clothes. Her childhood stuffed animals. The room was frozen in time, waiting for her to come back. But she didn't. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. And the silence grew heavier. I wanted to reach out. To call her. To apologize. To say I should have stood up for her. That I should have spoken. But Michael forbade it. She's the one who left, he said. She's the one who chose a boy over her family. If she wants to come back, she knows where we are. And I, weak and afraid and bound by years of deferring to my husband, obeyed. I told myself I was being loyal. That I was keeping my marriage intact. But really I was just being a coward. I asked mutual friends about Sarah. How she was doing. If she was happy. The answers were vague. She seems fine. She and Marcus are doing okay. She's working. But no one gave me details. No one told me the things I desperately wanted to know. Was she eating well? Was she safe? Did she ever think about us? Did she miss us the way I missed her? 2 years passed. Then 3. The silence became normal. A constant ache I learned to live with. Like a chronic pain you stop noticing because it's always there. Michael never mentioned Sarah. It was like she'd been erased from his life. But I saw her everywhere. In the grocery store when I passed the aisle with her favorite cereal. In the park where I used to push her on the swings. In the faces of young mothers with their daughters laughing together. Every moment was a reminder of what I'd lost. Then, 5 years after Sarah left, Michael got sick. Cancer. Aggressive. The doctors gave him 6 months. He lasted 4. And in those final months I watched my husband, the strong, stubborn, proud man I'd loved for 30 years, become small and fragile. One afternoon, as I sat beside his hospital bed, he opened his eyes and looked at me. "Margaret," he whispered. "I was wrong about Sarah. I should have let her go with my blessing. I should have trusted her judgment. I let my pride destroy our family." I held his hand, tears streaming down my face. "It's not too late," I said. "We can call her. We can tell her you're sick. She'll come. I know she will." But Michael shook his head. "No, I don't want her to come out of obligation. Or guilt. I made my choices. Now I have to live with them. Or die with them." And he did. Michael passed away on a rainy Tuesday morning. I was holding his hand. And his last words were, "Tell Sarah I'm sorry." I tried. I called the last number I had for Sarah. It was disconnected. I asked friends. No one had current contact information. She'd moved. Changed jobs. Changed her life. And I had no way to reach her. So I buried my husband alone. A small funeral. A handful of friends. An empty space where my daughter should have been. And after the funeral, I went home to an empty house and a silence that had grown from heavy to unbearable. I wrote letters to Sarah. Dozens of them. Pouring out my heart. Explaining. Apologizing. Begging for forgiveness. But I had nowhere to send them. So they sat in a drawer. Unsent. Unread. Just words on paper that would never reach the person they were meant for. Years continued to pass. 5 became 10. 10 became 15. And I resigned myself to the idea that I would never see my daughter again. That I'd lost her forever because I'd been too weak to stand up for her when it mattered. I aged. My hair turned gray. My body grew slower. My world shrank. I stopped going to church because everyone asked about Sarah and I didn't know what to say. I stopped attending neighborhood gatherings because I couldn't bear the pity in people's eyes when they realized I was alone. I became a ghost in my own life. Present but not really living. Just going through motions. Just waiting for time to pass. But I never stopped thinking about Sarah. Never stopped wondering. Was she happy? Did she have children? Did she ever think about me? Did she hate me? Did she forgive me? Or had she moved on completely, erased me from her life the way Michael had tried to erase her from his? The not knowing was torture. Worse than any answer could have been. Because at least an answer, even a painful one, would have been something. But the silence gave me nothing. Just endless echoing emptiness. 15 years became 16, 17, 18, and somewhere around year 19 I stopped hoping. Hope, I realized, is exhausting when it's never fulfilled. It's easier to accept loss than to keep hoping for something that might never come. So I let go. Or I tried to. I told myself Sarah was gone. That I'd made my choices and now I had to live with them. That some broken things can't be fixed. Some losses can't be recovered. Some daughters don't come home. And then year 20 arrived. November. Cold and gray. I was 67. Alone. Living a quiet, small life. Reading books I didn't really absorb. Watching television I didn't really see. Cooking meals for one. Going to bed early. Waking up with nothing to look forward to. Just another day. And another. And another. An endless string of empty days stretching out before me until eventually they'd stop. And that would be my life. A cautionary tale. A story of a mother who chose wrong and paid for it forever. That's where I was. That's who I was. The day Sarah knocked on my door. We stood there on that porch. Mother and daughter. Strangers who'd once been everything to each other. The November wind blew cold. I shivered. Not from the cold. From the shock. From the impossibility of this moment. Sarah shifted her weight. Her eyes moved from my face to the ground and back again. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. I stepped aside. Wordless. Numb. Sarah walked into my house. Into the home she'd left 20 years ago. She looked around, taking it in. Everything was the same. The same furniture. The same pictures on the walls. The same curtains. Time had moved forward, but this house had stayed frozen. A museum of the life we used to have. Sarah's eyes lingered on a photograph. Her at age 10. Smiling. Missing her front teeth. Standing between Michael and me at the beach. She looked at that photo for a long moment. Then she turned to me. "I should have come sooner," she said. Her voice cracked. "I wanted to. So many times. But I didn't know if you'd want to see me. If you'd even open the door." I found my voice. "Finally. After 20 years of things unsaid. I've wanted to see you every single day," I whispered. "Every single day for 20 years." Tears filled Sarah's eyes. And mine. We stood there. Crying. Not touching yet. Not hugging. Just crying. Releasing 2 decades of grief and regret and longing. "Sit," I finally said. "Please. Sit down." We moved to the living room. Sat on opposite ends of the couch. An ocean of space between us. Sarah twisted her hands in her lap. I folded mine. Waiting. Not knowing where to start. How do you bridge 20 years in a single conversation? How do you heal wounds that have been festering for 2 decades? Sarah spoke first. "I heard about Dad. About him passing. I'm sorry I wasn't there." I blinked in surprise. "How did you know?" "A friend told me. 5 years after it happened. I tried to find you then. To reach out. But I lost my courage. I told myself too much time had passed. That you'd moved on. That you didn't want to hear from me." I shook my head. "I never moved on, Sarah. Not for a single day." She looked up. Met my eyes. "I need to tell you something, Mom. I need to tell you everything. And I need you to listen. Because I've been carrying this for 20 years and I can't carry it anymore." I nodded. "I'm listening." And so Sarah told me her story. The story of the 20 years we'd been apart. The story I'd imagined and worried over and wondered about for so long. She and Marcus had been happy at first. Young and in love and sure they could conquer anything. They'd gotten married at City Hall. Just the 2 of them and 2 witnesses they'd pulled in off the street. No white dress. No cake. No celebration. But they'd been happy. They'd built a small life together. An apartment. Jobs. Dreams. And for a few years it was enough. Marcus worked construction. Sarah worked retail. They were poor but content. Then Sarah got pregnant. A surprise. They hadn't been planning it. But when she saw those 2 lines on the test, she felt joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. She wanted to call me. To tell me I was going to be a grandmother. To share this moment. But Marcus had said no. They didn't support us, he reminded her. They said we were making a mistake. We don't need them. And Sarah, young and still hurt and trying to build a life separate from her past, had agreed. Their daughter was born on a spring morning. They named her Emma. And Sarah said holding that baby was the most profound moment of her life. But it was also painful, because all she could think about was me, about how I wasn't there, about how I didn't know, about how her daughter would grow up never knowing her grandmother. And the weight of that loss pressed on her chest until she could barely breathe. I almost called you so many times, Sarah said, tears rolling down her face. When Emma was born, when she took her first steps, when she started school, every milestone, every moment, I wanted you there. But I didn't know how. I didn't know if you'd forgive me, if you'd want to meet her. And I was so angry, Mom. So angry at you and Dad for not supporting me, for choosing pride over love, for letting me walk away. I listened. My heart breaking, because I'd missed it all. The pregnancy, the birth, the first steps, the first day of school. All the moments I dreamed of sharing with my daughter and her children. All of it had happened without me. And I'd never get those years back. Never get to hold baby Emma. Never get to watch her grow from infant to toddler to child. Those years were gone. Lost forever because of pride and stubbornness and silence. Sarah continued. Her marriage to Marcus lasted 10 years. They'd tried. They'd loved each other. But they'd married too young. They'd built their relationship on rebellion rather than foundation. And slowly they'd grown apart. Different goals. Different values. Different visions for the future. They divorced when Emma was 8. It was amicable. Sad but necessary. And Sarah had raised Emma alone after that. Working 2 jobs. Struggling. Making it work. Emma's 18 now, Sarah said. She's in college. And she's the best thing I've ever done. The best part of my life. But there's always been something missing. Someone missing. I told her about you. About her grandmother. About what happened. And she asked me why I never tried to fix it. Why I let 20 years pass without trying. Sarah looked at me. Really looked at me. And I didn't have a good answer. I had excuses. Fear. Pride. Hurt. But no good reason. So I decided it was time. Time to stop being afraid. Time to stop letting the past control the future. Time to come home. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. I just sat there. Absorbing. Processing. My daughter. My granddaughter. 20 years. So much lost. But also Sarah was here. She'd come back. After all this time. After all the silence. She'd found her courage. She'd knocked on my door. And maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe we could still salvage something. Maybe we could still have a relationship. Maybe I could still know my granddaughter. Maybe forgiveness was possible. I'm sorry, Sarah said. I'm so sorry. For leaving angry. For staying away so long. For being too proud to reach out. For letting you miss Emma's childhood. For all of it. I'm sorry. And then I did what I should have done 20 years ago. I stood up. I crossed that ocean of space between us. And I pulled my daughter into my arms. I held her. After 20 years. I held my child. And we both sobbed. Deep wrenching sobs that came from the very core of our beings. 20 years of grief pouring out. 20 years of longing. 20 years of love that had survived despite everything. I'm sorry too, I whispered into her hair. I should have stood up for you. I should have defended you to your father. I should have been brave enough to go against him. I should have fought for you. And I didn't. I chose wrong. And I've regretted it every single day since. I'm so sorry, Sarah. We held each other. We cried. We let 20 years of pain and regret and loss wash over us and through us. And slowly, very slowly, we began to heal. That first day, Sarah stayed for hours. We talked. Really talked. We told each other everything. The years filled in. The gaps bridged. Not perfectly. Not completely. 20 years can't be summarized in a single afternoon. But it was a start. A foundation. A first step toward rebuilding what we'd lost. Sarah showed me pictures of Emma, my granddaughter. I stared at them with tears streaming down my face. She looked like Sarah had at that age. Dark hair, bright eyes, a beautiful smile. She wants to meet you, Sarah said softly. If you want to meet her. Want to? I wanted nothing more. The idea that I could know this girl, this young woman who was my flesh and blood, who existed because my daughter existed, felt like a miracle, like a second chance I didn't deserve but was being offered anyway. When? I asked. Sarah smiled. A real smile. The first genuine smile I'd seen on her face in 20 years. Tomorrow if you'd like. She's nervous, but excited. She's wanted to know you her whole life. Tomorrow. I would meet my granddaughter tomorrow. I nodded, unable to speak, unable to process the enormity of this gift. Sarah and I made plans. She would bring Emma the next afternoon. We'd have lunch together. Nothing formal, nothing pressured. Just 3 generations of women sitting down to a meal, getting to know each other, starting over. Sarah stood to leave as evening fell. We hugged again at the door. Longer this time. Less desperate. More hopeful. Thank you, I whispered. For coming back. For giving me another chance. Sarah pulled back. Looked me in the eye. We both deserve another chance, Mom. Both of us. After she left, I walked through my house in a daze. Everything looked different. The same furniture. The same walls. But somehow brighter. More alive. I went to Sarah's old bedroom. The one I hadn't opened in years. I turned the handle. Pushed open the door. And for the first time in 2 decades I stepped inside. The room smelled stale. Dusty. Frozen in time. But it was still hers. Still filled with pieces of the girl she'd been. I spent that evening cleaning. Opening windows. Dusting surfaces. Changing sheets. Making the room ready. For what I wasn't sure. Sarah didn't need her childhood bedroom anymore. But I needed to do this. I needed to breathe life back into this space. To acknowledge that she was back. That the silence was broken. That we were beginning again. That night I barely slept. I was too excited. Too nervous. Too overwhelmed. I kept thinking about Emma. What would she be like? Would she resent me for missing her childhood? Would she be angry that I'd let pride keep us apart? Or would she be willing to give me a chance? To let me be her grandmother, even if I'd missed the first 18 years? The next day I cooked. I made all of Sarah's favorite foods from childhood. Pot roast. Mashed potatoes. Green beans. Apple pie. I didn't know what Emma liked. So I made what I knew. What I remembered. What felt like home. At 1 o'clock I heard a car in the driveway. My heart started racing. I smoothed my dress. Checked my hair in the mirror. Took a deep breath. And opened the door. Sarah stood there. And beside her was Emma. My granddaughter. She was beautiful. Tall. Graceful. With Sarah's eyes and a shy smile. She looked nervous. Her hands clasped in front of her. Uncertain. Sarah made the introduction. Mom, this is Emma. Emma, this is your grandmother. Emma stepped forward. Extended her hand. But I couldn't shake it. I pulled her into a hug instead. Held her. This girl I'd never met but had loved from the moment I'd learned she existed. I'm so glad to meet you, I whispered. Emma hugged me back. Me too, she said softly. I've wanted to know you my whole life. We went inside. Sat down for lunch. And it was awkward at first. What do you say to a granddaughter you've never met? How do you bridge 18 years of absence? But slowly, carefully we found our way. We talked about Emma's life. Her school. Her interests. Her dreams. She wanted to be a teacher. She loved reading. She played piano. Every detail was precious. A gift. A glimpse into the life I'd missed. And Emma asked about me too. About my life. About Michael. About what Sarah was like as a child. She wanted to know her history. Her family. The stories she'd missed. And I gave them to her. Gladly. Gratefully. We talked for hours. The food grew cold on our plates. The afternoon light faded into evening. But none of us wanted to leave. None of us wanted this moment to end. Over the following weeks and months, we built something new. Not a replacement for what we'd lost. That was impossible. But something different. Something genuine. Sarah and Emma came over for Sunday dinners. We established a routine. A rhythm. They brought pieces of their lives into my home. Photos. Stories. Laughter. And I soaked it all in. Every moment. Every memory. Making up for lost time. Or trying to. I learned about Emma's childhood from photos and stories. First day of kindergarten. Lost teeth. School plays. Birthday parties. I hadn't been there for any of it. But Sarah shared it with me now. Let me into those moments retroactively. It hurt to see what I'd missed. But it also healed something. Filled in blanks. Gave me context. Helped me understand who Emma was and how she'd become that person. I also learned about Sarah's struggles. The years she'd worked multiple jobs to provide for Emma. The times she'd been exhausted and overwhelmed and alone. The moments she'd wanted to call me but convinced herself she couldn't. The regret she'd carried. The guilt. The grief. We cried together over those stories. Mourned the lost years. Acknowledged the pain we'd both endured. But we also forgave each other. Really forgave. Not just with words but with understanding. With empathy. With the recognition that we'd both made mistakes. That we'd both been human. That we'd both suffered. And slowly, week by week, month by month, we became a family again. Different than before. Smaller. Changed. But real. Sarah told me things she'd never told anyone. About her fears. Her regrets. Her hopes. And I listened. Really listened. Not judging. Not advising. Just being present. Being her mother in the way I should have been 20 years ago. Emma called me Grandma. The first time she said it, I cried. She seemed embarrassed, but Sarah just smiled and squeezed my hand. She's been waiting to call you that, Sarah said. And I realized that Emma had been grieving too. Grieving the grandmother she'd never known. The family connection she'd been denied. We'd all lost something. All suffered. But now we had a chance to heal. Together. One evening, about 6 months after Sarah's knock on the door, we were sitting in my living room, the three of us, drinking tea, talking quietly, and Sarah said something that I'll never forget. Mom, I want you to know something. What happened, it wasn't all your fault. I blamed you for a long time, but I've had years to think about it. And I made choices too. I chose to stay away. I chose not to reach out. I let pride and hurt keep me from you. We both made mistakes. Both of us. And we both lost because of it. I nodded. Tears in my eyes. Your father said something before he died. He said to tell you he was sorry. That he was wrong. That he let his pride destroy our family. I think he understood at the end. What he'd done. What we'd done. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I forgive him. And I forgive you. And I hope you can forgive me too. I already have, I said. The moment you knocked on my door. Maybe even before that. I forgave you a long time ago. I just never got to tell you. Emma looked between us. Her eyes bright with tears. I'm glad you found your way back to each other, she said. I'm glad I get to have a grandmother. I'm glad we get to be a family. And in that moment, sitting in my living room with my daughter and granddaughter, I felt something I hadn't felt in 20 years. Peace. Real deep settled peace. The kind that comes from forgiveness. From healing. From second chances. That was 3 years ago. 3 years since Sarah knocked on my door. 3 years since my world changed. Since the silence ended. Since forgiveness began. And in those 3 years we've built something beautiful. Not perfect. We still have hard days. Moments where the past resurfaces. Where old hurts flare up. But we work through them. We talk. We listen. We forgive. Again and again. Emma graduated from college last spring. I was there. Front row. Crying proud tears. Watching my granddaughter walk across that stage. Sarah sat beside me. We held hands. And we marveled at this young woman she'd raised, who was smart and kind and full of potential. After the ceremony, Emma ran to us. Hugged us both. Thank you, she said. For being here. for being my family. And I realized that I was exactly where I was supposed to be, where I should have been all along. We have Sunday dinners every week now, a tradition we've rebuilt. Sometimes it's just the three of us. Sometimes Emma brings friends. Sometimes Sarah brings a date. She's been seeing someone new, someone kind, someone who treats her well. And our table is full. Our home is full. Of laughter. Of love. Of life. The silence that once filled every room is gone. Replaced by voices. By stories. By connection. I look at Sarah sometimes and I see both the girl she was and the woman she's become. Strong. Resilient. Forgiving. She's faced hardship and heartbreak and she's survived. She's thrived. And I'm so proud of her. Not just for what she's accomplished but for who she is. For her courage in knocking on my door. For her willingness to forgive. For giving me another chance when I didn't deserve one. I've learned so much in these 3 years. I've learned that it's never too late. That 20 years of silence can be broken with 3 soft knocks. That forgiveness is possible even when it seems impossible. That second chances are real. That families can heal. That love, real deep unconditional love survives. Even when everything else falls apart. Even when pride and stubbornness and fear try to destroy it. Love endures. I've also learned about regret. Real regret. The kind that sits in your chest and reminds you of every moment you missed. Every birthday. Every milestone. Every ordinary Tuesday afternoon that could have been spent together but wasn't. I'll carry that regret for the rest of my life. But I don't let it consume me anymore. Because regret, while painful, can also teach. It can remind us what matters. What's worth fighting for. What we should never take for granted. If I could go back, I would do everything differently. I would stand up to Michael. I would support Sarah's choice. I would go to her wedding. I would be there when Emma was born. I would be the mother and grandmother I should have been from the start. But I can't go back. None of us can. We can only move forward. We can only choose differently today than we did yesterday. We can only make amends for the time we have left. And that's what I'm doing. Every Sunday dinner. Every phone call. Every moment with Sarah and Emma. I'm making amends. I'm being present. I'm choosing love over pride. Connection over silence. Forgiveness over bitterness. It doesn't erase the past, but it builds a future. And that's enough. That has to be enough. Sarah and I talk about Michael sometimes. About how he would feel if he could see us now. If he could meet Emma. If he could witness the family we've rebuilt from the ashes of what he helped destroy. I like to think he'd be proud. That he'd be glad we found our way back to each other. That his last words, "Tell Sarah I'm sorry," would finally feel fulfilled. I tell her those words now. Every time I think she needs to hear them. Your father was sorry. He loved you. He was just too stubborn to show it properly. But he loved you. And I can see it helps her. Gives her closure she never got when he was alive. I've started writing again. Not the unsent letters I wrote for years. But a journal. A record of our rebuilding. Our healing. I write about the Sunday dinners. About Emma's college stories. About Sarah's laughter. About the ordinary beautiful moments that make up our lives now. I write so I won't forget. So I'll remember that miracles happen. That doors open even after 20 years. That love finds a way. Last month Emma told us she's engaged. To a wonderful young man named David. She's 21. The same age Sarah was when she wanted to marry Marcus. And when Emma told us, I saw Sarah's face. I saw the fear there. The memory. The worry that history might repeat itself. But Emma looked at her mother and said, "We're not rushing. We're taking our time. Planning. Building a foundation. And we want both of you involved. Every step of the way." Sarah cried. So did I. Because Emma had learned from our mistakes. She was doing it differently. Better. And she wanted us there. Not despite our history but maybe because of it. Because our broken story had taught her something valuable. About communication. About family. About not letting pride destroy what matters most. We're planning the wedding now. The 3 of us. Sarah, Emma, and me. Choosing flowers. Tasting cakes. Looking at venues. And every moment feels sacred, because I get to be here for this. I get to be part of Emma's journey in a way I never was before. I get to help plan my granddaughter's wedding, something I thought I'd never experience, something I'd grieved losing before I even knew Emma existed. Sometimes I think about other people, other families who are living in silence, who have walls between them built of pride and hurt and stubbornness, who have daughters or sons or parents they haven't spoken to in years. And I want to tell them, knock on the door, make the call, write the letter. Life is too short for 20 years of silence, too precious for regrets that can be prevented, too beautiful to waste on pride. Will it be easy? No. Will it hurt? Yes. Will there be awkward moments and difficult conversations and pain that has to be processed? Absolutely. But it's worth it. So worth it. Because on the other side of that knock, that call, that letter might be healing, might be reunion, might be a second chance you thought was gone forever. I look at my life now and I see richness where there used to be emptiness. I see color where there used to be gray. I hear laughter where there used to be silence. And all of it, started with 3 soft knocks on a Tuesday afternoon. With a daughter who was braver than her mother had ever been. With a girl who decided that 20 years was long enough. That it was time to come home. I'm 70 now. I don't know how many years I have left. But I know that whatever time remains will be spent with my family. With Sarah. With Emma. And someday, God willing, with Emma's children. My great-grandchildren. Generations connected. A family tree that was nearly cut down but survived. That grew new branches. That learned to bloom again after a long cold winter. If you're reading this, if you're listening to this story, and you have someone you've lost to silence, I want you to hear me clearly. It's not too late. It's never too late. As long as you're both alive, as long as there's breath in your lungs and the ability to say I'm sorry, or I forgive you, or I love you. It's not too late. Don't wait 20 years like we did. Don't let pride steal decades from you. Don't convince yourself that the silence is easier than the conversation. It's not. The silence will eat you alive. But conversation, honest, painful, vulnerable conversation can heal. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's not pretending the hurt didn't happen. It's not erasing the past or acting like everything's fine when it's not. Forgiveness is making a choice. A choice to stop letting the past poison the present. A choice to acknowledge the hurt, sit with it, process it, and then decide that you want a future more than you want to cling to bitterness. It's hard. It's one of the hardest things a person can do. But it's also one of the most freeing. I forgave Sarah. She forgave me. We forgave each other. And in that forgiveness we found freedom. Freedom from the weight we'd been carrying. Freedom from the what-ifs and the regrets. Freedom to build something new. Not a replacement for what we lost. That's gone and can't be recovered. But something different. Something that honors both our pain and our love. Something that says, we were broken but we're healing. We were apart but we're together now. We were lost but we found our way home. My name is Margaret. I'm 70 years old. And 23 years ago, I lost my daughter to pride and silence. But 3 years ago she knocked on my door. And we found each other again. This is my story. Our story. A story of loss and redemption. Of regret and forgiveness. Of 20 years of silence broken by 3 soft knocks. Of a family that fell apart and slowly, carefully, painfully, beautifully put itself back together. If there's one thing I want you to take from this, it's this. Don't wait. Don't let years pass in silence. Don't let pride win. Don't convince yourself it's too late. Because as long as there's love, and there's almost always love, buried deep beneath the hurt, there's hope. And hope, when you're brave enough to act on it, can change everything. Sarah knocked on my door. And everything changed. Maybe it's your turn. Maybe you're the one who needs to knock. Or maybe you're the one who needs to answer. Either way, don't wait. Life is too short. Family is too precious. And second chances, while rare, are absolutely worth fighting for. 3 soft knocks. That's all it took. 3 knocks and 23 years of heartache began to heal. 3 knocks and a silence that felt eternal finally ended. 3 knocks and my daughter came home. I hope your story ends with someone knocking too. Or with you opening the door. Or with forgiveness spoken out loud instead of just hoped for in silence. I hope you find your way back to the people you love. Before it's too late. Before another 20 years passes. Before regret becomes the story of your life instead of just a chapter in it. My door is always open now. For Sarah. For Emma. For whoever needs it. And my heart, bruised and scarred but still beating, still loving, still hoping, is open too. After 20 years of silence, she knocked on my door. And I thank God every single day that I was brave enough to open it. That we were both brave enough to try again. That love was stronger than pride. That forgiveness was possible. That families can heal. May yours heal too. May your silences be broken. May your doors be opened. May your second chances be seized before they slip away. Because life is short. But love, real, true, enduring love is eternal. And it's always, always worth fighting for.